And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I am JC Kenny, and it's day one in post-solar eclipse life for a bunch of us here in the States. But more importantly than that, we've got a wonderful guest here, Sarah, so I think it's time to get bookish.
Let's get bookish. And it's a very special day for our guest because Cathi Stoler is celebrating the release of her brand new novel, Out of Time, which is a Nick Donahue adventure. Cathi, welcome back to the show. You were actually here celebrating Nick of Time originally with us when you first visited. So it's really exciting to be able to kind of continue our conversation and continue Nick's journey with him. So welcome.
Oh, I'm very happy to be back. Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And for our viewers, Cathi and I are actually members of the same Sisters in Crime chapter. So that's how we had originally connected in the first place. And the publishing world being what it was, it's always so fun being like, it's such a small community, and it's so fun to celebrate when folks have new releases. So Cathi, if you wouldn't mind, for our viewers who may have missed your earlier episode about Nick of Time, could you just introduce briefly the series and maybe just tell us a little bit about your writing background?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you about that first. I was a copywriter for a really long time, many, many years. And I always loved reading, and I love reading mysteries. And I thought, excuse me, maybe one day I would write one. And then I decided to do it. And I took a class called How to Overcome Your Fear of Writing Your Novel. And that pretty much got me started. And, I haven't, it's been a while. I have, so sorry. I have 2 other series that I've written. And I'm going to do another Nick book, but it's fun. I really love doing it. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, don't. Guests don't apologize, because 99 out of 100 times it's my mess up. So, but while I've got the floor, I just want to say congrats on the brand new release, and that comes out today. In fact, correct?
Came out today.
Yes. So tell us about it.
Okay, so this is the second book, and Nick and his partner, who's a private investigator, were hired to protect a very classic kind of Arabian stallion by an Arabian businessman, Adnan bin Haddad. The stallion had gotten death threats, but that's really not what the people wanted. They wanted proprietary information that bin Haddad had in a lab, that something he was working on. So they go off they're in New York first for Nick's brother's wedding. And then they were hired. Then they go off to Kentucky to meet the horses. And then they go to Dubai to meet the family. And then they come back to Kentucky, and it all kind of culminates at the Kentucky Derby.
What a backdrop for a adventure. And right off, in the opening pages, we're kind of in this kind of time jump where Nick is in a very precarious situation in Dubai. And then, we kind of get the background story about like how he ended up at the top of a tall building in Dubai, screaming for his life. And right away, like, you're just transported into this world of just like high stakes everything. You've got high stakes gambling, you've got high stakes horse racing, you've got high stakes just the world in general. And hearing about, with your background, Cathi, that you loved mysteries, you wanted to write mysteries, and you've written several series already that are very mystery focused. But this really kind of jumps into a new genre of, your thriller, espionage thriller. How did you decide to make that change from, you know, the genre that you were comfortable writing with into something brand new?
Well, honestly, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a spy. So
Ooh,
that
cool.
obviously didn't work.
Nice.
But it's honestly, it's not such a big jump. I mean, Nick is more adventurous. My other detectives and my bartender, the circumstances are different. But I came upon Nick a very long time ago when we were in Venice. My husband and I were at a casino, and everybody was like really well dressed, and these men were in their tuxedos. And I thought, you know, if I ever write a male protagonist, because I hadn't at that point, I thought I would write something like that. And it's just, he just seemed to fit that mode, not just a detective, you know, more of it was a gambler. So that's already like a risky kind of profession. Although in his mind, he doesn't look at it that way. He feels like it's how he makes his living. So it's, and I like suspense. I mean, I like, you know, I'm glad you think that it's got a lot of suspense and thriller elements to it, because I really wanted that to come through.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're just like each page, I mean, each chapter ends on such like not only a cliffhanger, but there's just so much of Nick's, like his personality in the words that you're writing. And I just thought that it was such, having read your other books and knowing your mystery style, I was just so captured by like, wow, like I didn't feel like I was hearing from you. I felt like I was hearing from Nick. And I think that that's the mark of like a really, really good writer, where it's like, I like this character feels like a real person telling me a story.
Well, I'm glad that comes through, because I wanted it to be him. He's not like my other characters at all. He's a little bit of a smart mouth.
He is super funny.
He's kind of quirky funny. And he just has a lot of little asides. And he knows he's not exactly what he thinks he is. That Marina kind of lets him hang around and help.
Oh, I love Marina, and I definitely want to talk more about her. But first, I want to say hello to our viewers who have joined us this afternoon. We've got Elle, we've got Farmhouse Reader, we've got Vicky, we've got Lori. Vicky's saying that she loves getting introduced to new to me authors, which is always wonderful. Elle is wishing you a happy release day, and Lori is saying how much she loves this series. So Lori and I have that in common. So let's talk about Marina, because she is such a driving force, and I think her backstory is just so compelling in regards to like how Nick gets into these situations, because you know he's not going out and like looking to be a spy. It's more of he's just kind of,
he's hanging around.
She's Sherlock and he's Watson, and he's kind of along for the adventure.
Well, in the first book is when they meet. The first book also starts out with him in a precarious position, and then we go back to why he was being kidnapped, and it was because of her. She cons him in the first book into doing a gem delivery for her, because she was undercover for MI6, although they did not back her up. So he got in a lot of trouble. He was kidnapped, but she got him out. And then it went on to be even more trouble for him in Switzerland with his brother, and in Monte Carlo, where he had to pay the mob back the money that they didn't get from their money laundering deal. I know it sounds a little like convoluted, but it all kind of flowed together after a while. But that's just the kind of character I wanted him to be. I wanted him to be fun and interesting and kind of sure of himself, but he's very quirky. So,
well, I tell you, one of the things that I just love, as you've been describing his adventures, is all of these glamorous places you're taking us to. And Sarah and I have joked about this in the past, because as cozy mystery writers, we love our quaint little teeny tiny towns, but our little towns have got nothing on Venice or Monte Carlo or anything like that, for sure. So could you tell me and kind of tell our audience, why do you choose the locations when they're jet setting around? Why have you chosen those locations?
Well, Venice I started with because that's where I kind of discovered I wanted to write about Nick. It just seemed to flow. I don't know. I mean, this one started in New York, and he was. They were contacted by someone from the EUA, and no, that's not. I'm not saying that right. From an Arab country. They'll come to me in a moment, and so I wanted them to go there at some point, and then because it was about the horses and the Derby, had to send them there. But I've traveled to all of these places except for Monte Carlo. That's the only place I haven't traveled to. And it's fun to write about places that and try and set things in these places, these cities or these countries. The next book is going to be mostly in London, in New York and London, where they live, where he and Marina now live. Well, they were both living there separately, but now they're living together. So I just think it's fun to add that international feeling, and I like those places, and other places that I've been to, I might try. I mean, Prague was in the first book too, and I really enjoyed when I was there. So it's kind of fun to recount that in your head when you're writing, like what you saw and what you felt when you were there, or how it would affect the character.
It also it adds to, I think, that element of the pacing that I had mentioned, where it's like, we're going all of the, traipsing across the continent or traipsing across the globe, and being able to experience these through the eyes of the reader as Nick, I think is a really smart way to be able to kind of build the tension that we're experiencing. So knowing that you had first kind of got your start writing, Cathi, by going to a seminar that's like about conquering your fears in writing. If you think about, what you've learned over the course of your career, what would you say would be the, I guess, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you've tried to instill in this book? As as you're showing this adventure to us, what are some of the lessons that you are kind of thinking about in the back of your mind? It's like, I need to make sure that I'm doing this as I am taking my reader on this journey.
Well, that's it. You want to take them on this trip with you. That's very important. And you want your characters to be interesting, and they need to have a reason to be in the places that they are and think how they think. And to me, again, I'm saying setting is very important. I think it holds the whole book together often. So it's one of those things. I think about that. I think about how they speak. I think about how they look, how the reader will perceive their appearance, their dialogue, and their connection. They have to have especially with Nick and Marina, they have to have this real connection. And Jude, from my other series, she owned a bar, so she had several very good connections with her landlord, who was also like her very good friend. And
I love him. He's one of my favorites. I love Sully.
Like Sully. Mm-hmm. So it's I'm not like sitting here being so aware of that all the time as I'm writing, but then I go back and I think, oh yeah, I missed that. Let me go back and put that in. Like, how would they interact about this particular event, or meeting this person or this crime? So it's pretty much, the class was great. It wasn't a mystery novel writing class. It was just for writing, whatever kind of story you wanted to tell. And I enjoyed it and had fun doing it. And I thought, I guess I could do this. I think I can do this.
Nice. Well, I'm very glad you did.
Yes, and you do it really, really well. So one of the questions that I'd like to ask you is, since we have a lot of cozy mystery fans who watch our show, and you've written obviously fabulous cozies or cozy-ish stories, but now moving into the thriller genre, can you talk to us a little bit about the differences, or what makes a thriller versus a cozy?
Well, I think the situations and the settings, like I guess it could be a cozy and travel the same places, but it wouldn't have the same feeling, like he wouldn't be in Dubai on a very tall building, maybe fighting for his life. The cozies, I think, are just more, I don't know what the word I want to use is. They're a little less scattered or a little less moving around sometimes, not all of them. Like most of them, I don't read all that many cozies in general because I don't think of my other books as cozies really. They're like more like modern mysteries. I mean, my detectives in my first series, she helps find a stolen Nazi artwork, so that had a little of that element in that too. And then in Las Vegas, there were like, I like to write about jewel thieves, art thieves, these kinds of people. So even though those books are sort of cozy, they have those other elements in them. The thriller is just more intense with that. Did that answer your question? Did I answer that at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because, well, and I think, and Sarah, I'd love your take on this, when we think of, like, at least when I'm thinking of cozies, I'm thinking, you've got that small community, you've got the whodunit, the crime's already happened. So we're trying to figure out what happened. And the thriller is very much a different animal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, for sure. And I think it has, there's a lot of it in the presentation of the information, because I think you could almost have a cozy and a thriller go through the same base plot line, but I think the level of maybe graphic detail that you're going to be getting from a thriller, like we would not get that in a cozy mystery. And I'm thinking about like the threats that are coming in to Adnan's horses. And right. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like as a diehard animal lover, I'm like, these poor horses, like I'm just like crying on the page. And so I would love to know, Cathi, how did you choose horse racing as kind of this backdrop for these threats to kind of, it's almost a front for what's really going on beneath the surface.
Right. Well, I really like horse racing too. When I was a kid, I went with my dad all the time not all the time, but I would beg him to take me to Belmont Park and buy us a horse, which of course never happened. There was no place to keep that horse in the Bronx.
Yeah.
But it just seemed, I don't know. I want to say I just thought, this might be interesting if he gets involved with this person who owns horses, but it's not really about the horses in the end, as you know. So because Adnan in the UAE also owns a big factory where they make all kinds of proprietary products. So it was about that. The terrorists are after something he's working on.
Well, I think just from like a style standpoint, and I don't know if this was even going on in the back of your head or if it's just something that kind of subconsciously happened. But whenever I'm reading something with animals, I'm getting invested into it, like no matter what it is. And so the fact that like, you're kind of putting this out there for your reader, and I think it's a nice way to like bring them into the story of like, oh, like we have to save these creatures. And then, whatever happens. Right. And it's a good way to tug on the heartstrings. And I think that sometimes in suspense novels, like you don't necessarily get that deep, like connection when it comes to the problem at hand. They're talking about science stuff that like goes way over my head, but like, oh, if we're talking about animals getting hurt, like I'm like, what's going on? I'm here to like figure out like, how do we stop this? So I think that for me, at least, like it felt like a really nice way to just like hook the reader and get them with that like heart-wrenching connection.
I mean, I honestly didn't do that on purpose. It was kind of a means to an end, but I do know that if you put a dog in a book, it's supposed to really help a lot. People love animals. I do too. I know one of them gets hurt and dies, but I tried to save the rest. So, yeah, it is. I mean, I think it is more of a human touch to do that, right? To add animals to your story and have it, kind of bolster the story a little bit in a different way.
Now I'm in the process right now of writing. I'm like not mid, maybe 3/4 of the way done with a manuscript. And so I'm at the part where I'm like, it's getting to be a little bit like pulling teeth to get me across the finish line. Were there any scenes, moments, plot lines in this novel that you felt yourself either struggling with or having like some difficulties wrangling, and like how did the solution come to you, or what was the process for, getting over that hurdle?
Well, there were a few, especially since the mob shows up again, and
they always create complications.
They never wanted to see that guy again. And Nick is afraid that if Marina sees him, she's going to literally kill him. So I kind of had to think about how to write that, because I added him more as a ironic character than I mean, he's a mobster, but I added him more as like a foil for Nick, and a little bit of a, I mean, he bests him in the end, but he's not done. Maybe. I hope he's done, but he's not done. He may show up again in the next book. But we'll see.
Excellent.
But that was a little bit of, I was like, how am I resolving this now? Because I didn't want too many more problems with that character. And then, well, without giving too much away, the scientific item that Haddad has been making is coveted by the terrorists, who were ISIS people, and they really want to get their hands on that. And I had to figure out how not to let that happen and not let everybody get killed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so folks, if you want to find out more about what Cathy's talking about, go buy the book. Okay. And then you can find it all out there. And one thing real quick, unfortunately, we've only got about 10 more minutes, Cathi. This has just been so much fun. Can you talk to us a little bit about Marina? Because, Nick didn't get involved in these hair-raising situations all on his own, did he?
No, he did not. Well, as I said before, she kind of conned him at the beginning into helping her. She meets him in the casino in Venice, and she convinces him to deliver this package of jewels to these not so nice guys. One of those jewel rings that really exist, by the way. They call them the Pink Panthers on Europe. They do smash and grab kind of things. But of course, I knew that wasn't going to go well, even when I was writing it. But then he thought she abandoned him, but she gets him out of that situation. And she's a former MI6 agent, and they kind of let her go. They didn't back her up. And she decides to open her own agency. And he kind of is the gopher boy, but he helps her whenever she lets him. She's a very strong-willed kind of character, and she knows her stuff. And when Adnan bin Haddad meets Nick, he really meets Nick because he wants to meet Marina. So, and Nick is a little like put out about that because he's like, why does he want to meet her? But then, of course, it all becomes clear. He wants her to help guard the horses. So she's moving along in the next book too. She doesn't actually believe what he's telling her about. This one is about art, an art forgery. And she's not sure he's telling what he thinks is happening is actually what is happening. But I'm not that far into it. I have like 10,000 words. So all that can change by the time I'm done with that.
Oh boy, can it ever? Well, I think Marina is such a, she's such a strong character, and I really appreciate how she's really the driving force, and Nick is, you said like her gopher, like he's running around and getting stuff for her, and I think that's a really fun dynamic to see, especially in the suspense genre where we're not always kind of getting that dynamic. And
he knows she lets him help. Mm-hmm. He knows this is not his field. Like it's something I was just writing. She looks at him, she goes, "You're not going to investigate, so get that gleam out of your eye,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
I feel like
He was,
our amateur sleuths often hear that, and so I think that there's like that nice kinship that Nick can feel with them, where it's like, oh man, like I'm getting told no, but I still want to do it.
he knows what he's going to be up to.
Mhm.
Well, some of it, but most of it is fine with her, and they work well together. He just I think they complement each other,
Mhm.
and they're not. I mean, he's an American and she's an Italian, but they're not like true American characters like you find in a Cozy, maybe, because he hasn't lived in New York for a really long time, and she's never lived in the States. So their attitude is a little bit different
Mhm.
than like my Jude character or my Helen, who was a PI.
Mhm.
So I try and capture that because you don't want everyone to be the same. You don't want your
Exactly.
characters to be the same or have the same background. So,
Well, it'll be very, very interesting to see where the next adventure takes Marina and Nick. And so that I hope, Cathi, you'll come back and join us to tell us all about it when the
you.
time comes. I'm waiting for
It's going to be a while.
what the pun title is going to be, because I find that nick of time, out of time. I love a good theme, so it'll be.
Other title is so far No Good Time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, nice.
Because I wanted to keep that going too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. If I have to write a fourth one, I don't know what I'm going to call it.
gotta go through. It's like, okay, idioms with time and
Right.
go through. And speaking of time, our time together draws very short. We've got a couple comments in our chat where Elle is saying loves all the traveling that your characters are doing and also appreciates the titles as well. So we've got some theme title lovers joining us live. Cathi, where are you going to be for any upcoming events? If folks want to catch you in person, or if you're doing anything online to celebrate?
Going to be at Malice
Mhm.
in person. We're planning some with Sisters in Crime. Well, on Sunday, how can I forget this? Going to be at Baker Street Irregulars with other Sisters in Crime members. We're going to be reading 5 minutes each. So that's one. We're going to be at the library again. I can't think what date, but coming like a little bit later in the year. And Lori and I are also doing the New York Society Library. We're doing a panel there on our anthology when that comes out.
Oh, nice.
And then we're going to do some seminars there on Agatha Christie.
Ooh, excellent.
And going to another, I don't know what the panel is going to be, but I'm going back to the 124th Street Library for an MWA panel. They haven't told us what the title is, or I don't know who else is going to be joining me for that. So that's all coming up.
Wow, so that's
and I'm hoping to be, in a bookstore someday signing away my books. But
and if folks want to keep in touch with you to figure out where all of these events are taking place, where can they do that?
They can email me at Cathi@CathyStoler.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, as always, when our time grows short, it's we always appreciate and want to reflect with the past 30 minutes have been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Cathi,
so much fun.
Good. I'm glad that we got to celebrate on release day with you for Out of Time.
Congratulations again.
Which is available now wherever books are sold. So if you're in the mood for a heart-racing journey across the world, Cathy's new book is surely a winner for you. For our viewers who joined us this afternoon live, we very much appreciate you being here, and thank you very much for your good wishes toward Cathi. Cathi, we've got a lot of folks saying congratulations. And for our upcoming shows here at it's Bookish Time TV, on this Thursday, we have the Bookish Hour at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope that you'll join us for our episode. It's sure to be a fun time. We actually have a lot of events coming right up because both JC and myself will also be at Malice. So we're going to be gone on what would normally be a streaming week for us, but we're moving things up. So I think it's we're having back-to-back shows. So it'll be super fun times. But again, Cathi, thank you very much for being
Oh,
here.
thank you for having me, both of you. And JC, it's nice to meet you finally, and I'll see you in person.
And yes, we'll see each other at Malice. So until then, everyone, enjoy the wonderful spring weather and stay bookish.
All right, bye.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.